Okay. All right. Well, yeah, I didn't know I could get versatile. I could listen to Anglo-Saxon music just like I could listen to hip hop. I don't discriminate. Music is energy, and energy is indiscriminate. So, all right. So I'm trying to get back into this highly effective habits. Whoa, what's it called? Effective habits of highly effective people. No. Habits of highly effective people. Whatever it's called. Steve Covey. Whatever. 7 habits of highly effective people. There we go. And yeah, I'll still have to get my motivation though. But you don't want to hear me talk about motivation. You don't want to hear me talk about Anglo-Saxon music that I can also get hyped off of. You want to hear me talk about software. So let's talk about software. All right. Well, no, I don't know, but something happened where the job title changed from I think in the mid to late 90s. I don't know. Their job title is called software engineer. But you know what happened is people weren't engineering software. They were just debugging it. And I have to silence my phone. So people weren't really engineering software, and they still don't engineer software. The majority of them, they just go through this routine of, does it work yet? No. All right, stop the application, navigate to whatever file, update some code, launch the entire application again, navigate to whatever page within the application. Does it work yet? Step through the debugger. Nope, doesn't work yet. Stop the application, navigate to a file. And they keep doing this retarded cycle over and over and over. Employers don't realize what they're doing. But we all did it. That's how we learned how to program. Unfortunately, 95% of people, developers that call themselves professionals, still do that. No. And that's why the job title of software engineer went to be software developer. Even it should still be software debuggerer, but why am I saying all this? Okay, well, I think, all right, John Simon has told me I need to help. I need to give to people, right? That's what he said, and he used that gesture. I need to give to people, right? So, all right, if I'm going to give to people, if I'm going to make all 5 people that have actually viewed this video better developers, then let's bring back software engineering. All right. So what does that mean, Scott? What does that mean? Okay. Well, I want you to challenge yourself to. I want you to challenge yourself to optimize the troubleshooting of your code. Okay. Optimize the troubleshooting of your code. Okay. What does that mean? It means I want you to engineer your software, right? As I'm checking my messages as they come in. And when you engineer your software, I want you to quickly be able to identify whether an anomaly that has been reported, an anomaly that has been observed, stems from business logic or integration logic. Okay? Stems from business logic or integration logic. Where does this anomaly come from? Okay? So when you think about it like that, all right, well, tell me more, Scott. Tell me more. Okay. When you engineer your applications, I want you to set up in architecture. Maybe architecture is overloaded. I want you to set up your system such that you can quickly diagnose if it's integration logic, such as a funky query that was written to pull down some data, and maybe that query wasn't written correctly based on the requirement, based on expectations, right? I want you to quickly diagnose that. If it's an integration issue, hence hitting the wire, grabbing data from the wire, right? Or if it's nothing to do with a query, it has everything to do with a business rule that wasn't implemented correctly based on requirements. Okay? We'll let that sink in. All right. I want you to be able to diagnose the source of an anomaly quickly by being able to identify if it's one of two issues or triggers. Business requirements or the implementation of business rules, aka domain logic, or integration logic. Funky queries that are really specific to external systems, right? Integration logic. So the strategy that I use to do that is within my application, I will basically have some type of configuration setting that is a bool, right? A bool value saying, is this integration mode or isn't it, right? If it's integration mode, then my application is going to basically, my system is going to be composed of components that are integrated together to make up the system, right? So what that means is if my integration flag is set to true for my application, when I launch the application, it is going to basically recognize that, hey, I'm in integration mode. Hey, give me all of my dependencies that are specific to me relying on external systems, web server, right? Anything else that's external, those dependencies are going to basically be swapped in, okay? Else, if my application is not in integration mode, then my application is really running in isolation. My application is essentially running independently of a web service, a database. My application is running in isolation. And that is how I am able to identify if there's a business logic issue or an integration issue, right? When I have unexpected data that I'm viewing in my application, how did that data come to be? Well, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to ensure that my integration mode is set to false, for my application. So my application is not relying on some funky query, right? That is actually hitting a web server and pulling back some data. But instead, listen up. Instead, my application is actually relying on my test API to feed it data, right? The same test API that my unit tests rely on to feed it data, okay? And that's how I am able to differentiate between a domain logic anomaly versus an integration anomaly. All right, well, can you show us a little bit of more detail, Scott? All right, well, I'm not going to show you an application, but I will show you some code, okay? Because you see this right here? Oh, hold up. That's what I aspire to be, man. If NASA has checks and balances, if NASA has instruments to quickly diagnose the source of an issue. We're developers, man. We should strive to be engineers. We should strive to be professionals. Why are we burning so much of our clients' money on things that could be automated, right? On things that could be optimized. They pay us to optimize. They pay us to automate. Why aren't you doing that? Anyway, all right, I'm done venting. So let's go to code, right? Oh, Metallica. I don't even listen to Metallica, but I have this obsession, this fascination with prisons. All right, so what does that mean? All right, let me commit whatever I had. Do my tests still pass? All right. Huh? You still pass? Tell me you still pass. Come on, go, build. Build succeeded. Okay. Pass. Everything's green. Great. Let me go ahead and check this in. All right. And I don't know what I did. I'll just say added support for integration mode /dependency swapping. All right. All right. So Control-Alt-L brings me back to my Solution Explorer. And what do I want to do? Let's manage claims. Did I do everything? No. I want to go to my activities. All right. Integration folder. Yeah, all right. And my activities. I think I did my claims yesterday. Service details. I have a create view model. Yep. This is my signature. And I basically have this thing called a repository factory that I spin up an instance of. I pass within this constructor of this repository factory a flag called isIntegrated. This is integrated is part of my global class. This global class is specific to integration responsibilities or integration context. And so there's this notion of a dispatcher that dispatches events that I use heavily for navigation between pages, and also added this isIntegrated flag. This isIntegrated flag is going to be set to false. I don't really have to be explicit like this, but there's going to be times where when I put this out in the QA environment or production, I'm going to set it to true, just like that. So it's essentially like a configuration class, right? Essentially. And so this is actually used in a number of places, right? So I use it throughout all my activities, and these activities are essentially going to bootstrap how that page is going to rely on a potential external system. It's going to load in dependencies, right? These dependencies are either going to come from my test API, which is this right here, right? In which it relies on various mock repositories, right? Or it's going to rely on the actual, it's going to rely on external systems, in which there's a repositories project right here within my integration folder. This repositories it probably doesn't have any files in it. It does have interfaces though. So right now this repositories has interfaces, but it doesn't have the concrete classes that will actually do the queries, right? That may involve an ORM. I'm in F#, so more than likely I'll use a type provider, which I haven't really dug into yet. But I want you to realize that I have two different data feeds, right? Two different data sources, all right? I have the data source that comes from integration, from my integration folder, in which it's going to hit some repository classes, and within those classes, there's going to be a connection to the outside world to pull in some data. Or that's if it's in integration mode, right? It's going to rely on this library, this repositories library. If it's not in integration mode, right, in which the activity, all my activities are going to rely on this global.isIntegrated. If it's not in integration mode, as I said earlier, it is going to go ahead and rely on my repositories factory, and it's going to pull the repositories from my test API library, which is all this right here. Yeah. Okay. So that's essentially it. So let's look at an example, or maybe we can create an example. I don't know. All right, let's go. Let me try to get into flow. I'm trying my hardest to get into flow. All right, so we go to home, and I don't think I implemented anything at home. We have a, hold on, does home even need this register might? It might, I'm not sure if it does. So let's open up this register activity, register.internal, and yeah, this isn't really, yeah, so this isn't loading any data. Honestly, I don't think my home folder and the activities within my home folder. No, let's look at this portal dashboard. This portal dashboard, does this load in any data? La la la. And it doesn't load in any data. Yeah, I already did this one. Okay, so here's the example. All right. We go up here, this portal dashboard activity, and what we do, oh no, something's not right. Hold up. Yo, you don't belong in here. All right. You belong over here. Okay. There you go. All right. So what's going to happen in one of these activities, this activity called a portal dashboard, which is essentially a dashboard page within the application, is it is going to create a view model, right? That's the first thing it's going to do, is it's going to establish a view model to rely on, right? And when it does that, I have this repository factory. And again, as I said earlier, it's going to rely on my global class. My global class is it has nothing to do with business logic. It has everything to do with integration logic, right? And so it's going to basically rely on, hey, is this integrated? And whenever I wanted to set the flag, I just go to this global class right here. This is integrated property, and I'll just go ahead and set it to true when I wanted to talk to external systems. Else, if I want the application to run in isolation without any dependencies, so that I can test it in isolation without it having to rely on, I don't know, hitting some external system, then I just toggle this right here. Okay. So the first thing I do is I spin up an instance of a repository factory. I pass in its constructor whether I want it to be in integration mode or not. Okay. And then with this factory, I go ahead and I retrieve the member ID, right? Because this application involves a user logging in and the user to view their information, right? So there's going to be some type of like member ID, user ID, whatever you want to call it. You want to look at the implementation details of this get member ID. I basically have say, hey, is this integration mode? Remember, when we spun up this repository factory, we went ahead and we passed in an argument specifying if it was in integration mode or not. And we say, hey, is this integration mode? And if it is, then we rely on a method. Yeah, this is C#. We rely on a method to get us the actual member ID. Now, the implementation details of this, I don't care about yet because I haven't implemented it yet. But more than likely, it's probably going to hit up the local database. As of 2016, SQLite seems to be popular. So more than likely, when I flush out the implementation details of this get actual member ID, it is more than likely going to hit up a local database, more than likely SQLite, and it's going to pull in the member ID from there. Else, if it's not in integration mode, then it means that this is just in test mode and this application is running in isolation, which means that we want to test this application in isolation of external systems. And so we're just going to pass it some member ID. And this some member ID is actually defined in our test API project. All right. So this is C#, right? And so it is actually relying on a DLL. Let's not go into the actual source, but within the test API, we have this mock member. If I do control comma, this mock member is actually defined right here, as I said earlier in my test API. And this is mock member. All right, I'm starting to get into flow. All right, cool. So I just went over how I use, it may be a bad name, but whatever. I could call it dependency factory. And that's probably a good name, right? I'm going to change it right now. Oh, hold up. I'm going to change it over here. How about that? Yeah. All right. Well, all right. So, dependency factory. Yeah, I like that name better. Yeah, you changed the name of that class too. All right. All right. So, as I built that, so let's go back. Let's go back. And so we use this dependency factory, and we're able to get the dependencies based on what mode we're in of the application, whether we're in integration mode, this right here, or if we're not in integration mode and we're just relying on the app to run in complete isolation of external systems. Translated, when we want the application to run independently, right? Because let me go back to me. You see this? Oh, you see that, right? That's what I want to strive to be, man. Engineer software, right? I understand software developers. F that. I want to be an outlier. I want to be a software engineer, man. What I used to be back in I started my career in 2001. So, yeah, we want to get back to that, man. We want to build systems with intelligence because we're professionals. That's what we do. Go back. All right. So, we have a factory. All right. And with this factory, we're able to, based on how we constructed the factory via an argument, we know that the factory is going to either dish out some dependencies that are based on integration. Well, it's going to essentially feed us dependencies that are going to be based on if we're in integration mode or we're not in integration mode. So we can get a member ID. That member ID is based, again, on the context of if we're in integration mode or not. And when we want to retrieve a repository, This repository is either going to, again, be based on integration mode or not. And if it's in integration mode, then the implementation details of this benefits repository is going to do a query that's going to hit the wire, and we're going to actually get data back, right, from some external system. And so that's what this repository is for. If we are not in integration mode, then instead of relying on the external system, we rely on our test API, right, which just spits out arbitrary values that we need. I probably could have said that a better way, but I'm not going to go back. All right, and then we go ahead and we take our view model and we spin up an instance of our view model. We pass in the member ID, right, representing the user that's going to be consuming information from this application. And there's a dispatcher that we use for navigation, and also the repository that's going to reflect if we're actually running in production or QA environment versus if we're just a developer that's doing TDD, and every once in a while we need to spin up our application and do some testing of the actual application, right? So that's it. And if we go back to this dependency factory, I like that name, Scott. Good job. Go back to the name of dependency factory. We see some other methods here, right? We see create benefits repository, create claims repository, create company repository, create profile repository. All right. So I know the majority of you are out there like, yo, why don't you just use an IOC container, right? I know like the majority of the world's like, yo, dependency injection. Oh, essentially that's what we're doing. I mean, it's the same thing, right? But you're not using an IOC container. What about Ninject? What about Unity? Oh, so what? I don't have to. Why? In fact, why do I even have to use those third-party IOC containers? They're dictionaries, all right? So as far as I'm concerned, like, they're dictionaries. The key is going to be an interface, right? Or a type. And the value, yeah, so the key is going to be a type of the dictionary, and the value is going to be an object of the dictionary. I don't need to pull down NuGet. I don't need to pull down Unity. If I wanted to create a dictionary, I could just create, a member variable. Well, I could do a global dictionary, I guess. And then from there, I could just use it everywhere. Let's say dictionary within angle brackets, type, comma, object. Those are the two types, the key value pair within my dictionary. And then from there, I can go ahead and register interfaces to reflect types and instances of those interfaces, hence a concrete class instance to do that. But I don't want to. I like rolling up a little factory, and that's it. And you notice how I only use it in one place. I use it within my activities, and that's it. It's not sprinkled all over my domain logic, because my domain logic is my domain logic. It's not integration logic, right? I don't want any third-party tools, libraries. I don't want anything in my domain logic, because I end up taking my domain logic hostage. And I end up having to write more code, perform more ceremonies, sacrifice llamas and donkeys just to get just to make my code work, because I have this stupid third-party dependency that wasn't written for testability. Right? Examples of that are SQLite. Right? Try to create properties that SQLite relies on with no setters. Just have getters on it. Okay. Hence, create immutable properties and have SQLite rely on that. Right? It won't work. Right? That's an example of third-party frameworks basically having the potential to take your code base hostage, in which now you have to write all this code, and just because the framework wasn't written for testability, or it wasn't written for, I would say, good practices or recommended practices. Entity framework, I'm sure, has the same issues. And if you notice that my entity framework is not going to be, well, I'm doing F# now, so I guess I'm using type providers, which I haven't even experimented with. But none of my queries are going to be in any of these core modules, these core libraries, right? Again, when I end up having to write some queries, it's going to be in this repositories project within my integration folder. So that's it. I went off on a little bit of a tangent, but yeah, that's essentially it. The intent of me wanting to, or should I say, the intent of me producing this video is to basically go back to me, is basically to enlighten you on, hey, you can write an application that can run independently of web services or a database, right? And I think that there's advantages to that, because I think with that you're able to, when an anomaly is observed, the first thing you do is you launch the application. You set integration mode to false. Launch the application such that data is only fed from your test API into your client application, and you can see if you're able to reproduce that anomaly. And if you can't reproduce that anomaly when it's not in integration mode, then you flip the flag and you put it in integration mode. Now it's hitting the wire, it's retrieving data from external systems, and you see if you can reproduce the anomaly there. If you can reproduce the anomaly there, there's an issue more than likely with your queries, right? And it becomes an integration anomaly, an integration issue. And that's how you decide. It's kind of like a binary search, yay or nay. You figure out where it's at, and you get rid of that half, right? And there's a little Richter scale. The screen shook. And then you're able to focus. And the thing is again, I don't want you being a professional debugger, man. I want you to be an engineer, right? I want you to work smart. Like, you went to college. Well, not everyone went to college. I'm not taking away from that. But we automate for a living. Why aren't you doing that? Come on. Level up. Get your game up. That's it. That's all I wanted to share with you. Big thank you to John Saunders and this Grant Cardone 10x, the 10x rule. I am trying. I am going all out, man. I'm doing everything I can. And I'll just keep going and going, because it's what I have to lose, right? That's it. My name is Scott Nimrod. Employers, I'm available for hire. Developers, I am available to talk to, because I love talking to people that are passionate and people that care. And I'm down here in Miami by way of Cleveland, Ohio. Adios, te veo a ratito. And can I play an intro to that song? I like the intro to that song. I'll play an intro to that song. What did I have? It was wasn't it Metallica? Metallica. How do you spell Metallica? Metallica Prison. I like the intro. I like the intro to the song. It's ah, ugh.
Welcome to San Quentin. We're all excited you're here, staff and inmates alike. One thing I do have to tell you before you enter, the state has a no hostage policy. In the unlikely event that you are taken hostage, the state will not negotiate the release except for the release of an inmate. Agree with that?
All right. All right, man. I'm out. No. Be an engineer. Come on. Level up. Peace.